You're grinding every day. Long hours, no backup, no accountability. That ends now. The Empower Solopreneur Mastermind gives you one simple advantage: a weekly power session that turns isolation into domination. Every Friday morning on Zoom, you'll get real coaching and real feedback to make real moves. Join a group of driven professionals in a program designed for solopreneurs and people working at home. Stop getting stuck. Start scaling. Seats are limited. Lock in yours today at modernobserver.com/empower-mastermind.
Welcome to another edition of Carnivore Radio. This is your host, Jeff Sherman, along with Dr. Eric Lopkin. And again, it's like your wife said, I believe you referenced that last week about, it used to be we had to, in your other podcast, you had to kind of research things. That's not the case anymore. I think the biggest thing now in the news, and a lot to digest, is the ICE versus Dems versus Karens, and that also dovetails into the Minnesota corruption situation. That's no minor issue. It's blowing up, and it's blowing up not just in Minnesota, but in other areas, including California. So let's talk about ICE versus Dems and what's going on in Minnesota. You had a shooting. What's your take on all this?
Okay, the shooting was a horrible incident, no doubt.
Let me real quick. I actually think it was not really necessary. That's just my opinion.
No, I think
it wasn't unprovoked. It was provoked, but it was. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, it was not unprovoked, but was it necessary? No. I think our ICE agents probably need better training. Also, there was a personal aspect of this because the ICE officer in question had been hit by a car previously at protests and dragged. So you had that reaction, which I'm sure made it worse. On the other hand, Good, who was the victim of the shooting, had been stalking the ICE agents, hit the ICE agent with her car, and it was released. And video from the ICE agent's point of view has been released. I've watched it. You hear them order her out of the car. Her wife tells her to drive. Of course, her wife's not in the car at the time. She tries to flee the scene, hits the ICE agent, and then he shoots. Now, it was later released. The ICE agent suffered internal injuries and internal bleeding.
Wait, hold on. That is very important because I did see that as well. And that goes to the press still has a biased hangover in spite of all that's transpired over the last several years at least. It will never be reported. The way it's reported is that the mirror hit him, and rear view mirror, that is, and it was nothing. But yes, was it necessary? Probably not. They could have gotten the license plate and dealt with it later. But was it completely out of the blue? Absolutely not. And I think it's highly irresponsible for the mayor, who is a complete dipshit, and the governor to be continuously conveying that narrative that it was totally unnecessary and unwarranted, and also putting more fuel on the fire.
Well, they want to put fuel on the fire. There was a great clip on Laura Ingram's show where she was at the protests, and one of the protesters is very arrogant, very aggressive towards her, and she asked him point blank, Do you even have a job? And without missing a beat, the protester said, I'm being paid right now. Admitted
Oh yeah, yeah.
on camera that the protesters are not Minnesota residents. They are being paid. And there was a group of Minnesota residents that actually came out to protest against the protesters. But you're not seeing all of that.
Yes, and it escapes me. You can help me out, Dr. Lopkin, who is the Attorney General. I forgot. I'm not a big fan of hers. Why can't we get to the bottom of who's astroturfing all this shit? Is it Soros? I mean, they talk a mean game plan, but let's follow the money and let's put an end to it.
Yeah, they need to follow the money. They actually have to prove that George Soros or whoever it is funding these
Support 'em.
things. I mean, for all we know, it could be the DNC. I'm not accusing the DNC. I'm just saying we don't know what party is behind it.
Let's find out is
Well,
the point.
yes, we need to find out. We need to see who's fueling these things. Because if you take a look at the protests, day one, as soon as the protests started, you don't just have groups of people there. You've got pre-printed signs. This is organized. This was planned. It's
Okay,
not
you know something? For all the intelligence, okay, they couldn't hold a job, these organizers, but that was pretty stupid because that's their only job is to facilitate these inorganic protests. And yet you'd think you'd come out with, in different areas, different effing signs, genius. Hello? Like, what is it? Like, they got a contract from Pronto Printer that's printing them all across the country? I doubt it very much. Yeah,
Well,
at least,
actually,
at least
well,
try.
actually,
At
it
least
would
try.
it would not surprise me because there are companies behind this. Now, I'm not saying companies are trying to fuel the flames. There are companies that rent actors for these protesters. They line people up, they've got the roster, and they go, oh, we've got a protest on such and such, and they call their people and send them out because that's what they're being hired to do. So it would
Oh, yeah,
not
no,
surprise
I've seen that. You're right.
yeah, so it would not surprise me if they have a contract with a national printer to just roll these things out. Because quite frankly, if you were doing this one-off using, say, a local printer, you're never going to get them out this quickly.
Oh, good point. I think it was said in jest, but you are correct. And we also have activity in Congress, the Dems, which let's just cut the crap. The Dems used to actually believe, you cannot believe this. I'm talking even like during Clinton, were for they even during George W. they criticized him for not adhering to a stronger or enforcing a stronger border. That now, let's just say they're for open borders. They're actually, and again, it's ridiculous, but it's true, trying to initiate impeachment proceedings against Kristi Noem. That's not going to look good.
The Democrats have gone impeachment crazy. They seem to have forgotten that the definition of an impeachment is the punishment for high crimes and misdemeanors. You actually have to break the law to be impeached. Now, Trump did not break any laws, and yet he was impeached twice. They keep calling for
wait a second. He will be if they lose the midterms. He'll be impeached.
He will be impeached again. Yes. And he actually said that to the Republicans during their strategy meeting. They're expecting this because it's the only thing the Democrats know. And unfortunately, the general public does not seem to understand that impeachment is a criminal investigation. There is a chain of food stores, I won't give the name, that during the first Trump term was actually promoting the idea of impeachment and raising money for it. Now, They clearly did not understand that this was a criminal investigation, not, well, we don't like you, we want you out. And by the way, that food chain, after they completely failed to do anything about what Trump was doing, started sending out emails begging their customers to come back because people left them right and left.
Yeah, that's probably an issue. That's like getting drunk at the company picnic, Christmas party, and then saying, hey, am I still employed? That might be a little too late, but yes, quite interesting. And we do look at the midterms, and during our prep, you had a very good point. It's good and bad. It's yin and yang. Economically, we're smoking. However, you are correct. Inflation's down, but the aggregate, it's an aggregate number, and one big component of the aggregate is food prices, and like you said, that hits Americans day in and day out. I mean, it hits me. Like, I just thought about that. I went shopping yesterday, and I was thinking to myself, wow, it's kind of really wild that it used to be X amount, and now, I mean, for less than you can't get out of there from less than $100.
Yeah, food prices are still going up. However, we are seeing, it's not like one giant thing going up. Primarily meat is going up, but eggs have come down. Other food has come down. Overall, the prices are still higher, though. And a big part of this problem is the fact that, yes, inflation has slowed quite a bit, but it's still going up. It almost always goes up. So it's still going up from the ridiculous levels that we saw under the Biden administration. That's going to be a major headwind for the Republicans to fight against. Now, we are
Yeah, but
seeing energy.
let me
Wait,
interject something about that. As from a marketing perspective, something that you're certainly an expert on, it's the Republicans have completely failed on messaging on that account. Again,
yes,
people
yes,
still
they have.
feel it, and they do blame the people in office. But when the Democrats talk about affordability, I laugh. They're the ones who created it, but the Republicans need to start saying that more.
Yeah, they need to be saying that more. But we're also seeing energy prices go down. Gas has actually hit its lowest point now since pre-pandemic. So that's going to be a major factor in the midterms also, because gas is the first thing. It is the base cost. All food costs are based on it because it costs fuel to run the tractors and to run the machinery that actually manufactures our food and grows our food. So as energy costs come down, food costs will come down as well. If that can happen fast enough, and there's a good possibility it will, that's going to mitigate some of the headwinds. From a marketing standpoint, let's face it, the Republicans have never been good at marketing. This is the big
Trump is, though.
yeah, this is the big difference between the two parties. The Democrats are terrible at creating processes. Everything they do falls apart, but they are brilliant at marketing. The Republicans, they're great at putting processes. When they put something together, it works, but they're horrible at marketing and getting the message across. So they a lot of
Could one of
times
the could one of the root excuse me, but could one of the root causes be that the Republicans actually had previous jobs, and the Democrats had communications degrees from Trinity?
it's
Kidding.
possible. I mean, it's that sort of thing is actually possible. This is what happens, though. I remember Paul Ryan used to declare himself a policy wonk because
Hmm.
he loved getting into the guts of something and making it work. And that's the mindset of the Republicans. The mindset of the Democrats is We want to be loved. We want everybody to do what we tell them and love that we told them to do it. But they don't actually want to figure out how it's going to work. Remember when Obamacare was passed? Nancy Pelosi's famous quote, well, we have to pass it to see what's in it.
Yes, I would agree with that. And something, you look at the global situation, and I think it's indicative of exactly what you just alluded to and articulated, and that is the Dems F everything up. You look at Obama, you look at Biden, the world was on fire. With Biden, I was actually concerned about a thermonuclear war. He had no one at the helm. You look at the changing geopolitical map, and it's fascinating and I'd say impressive. You look at Venezuela. You look at all the things. You look at the denuking of Iran. You look at. I believe that Iran, the mullahs are going to fall, and where are the Dems? Crickets. Your thoughts?
Well, part of the problem that the Dems are having now is they still suffer majorly from Trump derangement syndrome. During the Biden administration, we don't even have to go back that far, just a year and a half, they were calling for Maduro to be arrested. They wanted Maduro taken out of power. They offered a $25 million reward for anybody who captured him. But because Trump did it, now it's a bad thing. Well, no, it's not. You've got to get over this hatred of Trump.
Can I interject one thought on that? Victor David Hanson, I love the guy. I believe he got to the root cause, and it is the root cause, that Trump is not going after the periphery. He's going to the core elements, the core power structure that supports the democratic infrastructure, and they're scared to death of it, and so is the swamp. I truly believe. It's not personal, although it is. It's more structural and what they fear.
That's actually a really good that's a really good point. But where that can explain the elected officials and the folks working in Washington, that doesn't explain the average Democrat on the street who has Trump derangement syndrome.
Correct.
Because they don't know from that. But I mean, part of it is, especially if you watch closely over the last few weeks, especially, I've seen it ramped up. But Trump is saying things legitimately in his speeches on Truth Social that I honestly believe the only reason he's saying it is to get under the Democrats' skin. He's taunting them, and they can't respond.
I would agree with that. And sometimes it's very counterproductive, like Greenland, but that's Trump. He is, in my lifetime, the only president I can compare him to is Reagan, about changing the entire paradigm. Is it guaranteed to work? No, but you look at the opportunities that he's facilitated and the lack thereof from Obama, Biden, and even you can go to George W. I mean, he was a train wreck. And Trump and his people, Rubio's done a great job. This could be a whole new Middle East. There could be a whole new Western Hemisphere without any question.
Yes.
Even in Latin America, there's a huge paradigm shift from socialism. Of course, there's socialist countries. I get it. But there's whole Argentina, other countries. There's a monumental shift that's going on that could completely realign the trajectories of national power structures. The basically, trajectory of China, of Russia, that's certainly sidetracked, but it's astounding in terms of when you juxtapose what's going on, even only in the last year, I should say, versus the last 20. Your thoughts?
Yeah, it really is a paradigm shift, and not just in America, but globally. You are seeing something that hasn't been, I mean, honestly, the last time we saw something like this was the fall of the Berlin Wall in the 1980s.
Hmm.
It is a massive shift, and a lot of it is because Trump came in and said, "Okay, you know what? You fooled around long enough. Now it's time to get to work. The party's over, dad's home, we're cleaning the house and getting everything fixed."
Yes, you're correct,
It-
but you're but nothing. You are 100% correct. And being older than you, that's exactly what Reagan did, to a
yes.
T. No, no, I'm not talking about the policy. I'm talking about the psychology. Daddy's home, and guess what? We're not screwing around anymore.
Yes, that's exactly
That's
what Reagan
100% what happened.
it's exactly what Reagan did. It's exactly what Trump is doing. Um, if you take a look, though, if you actually go back and read The Art of the Deal, everything that Trump has done is completely predictable. Everybody talks, "Oh, he's out of his mind. He doesn't know what's going on. He's unpredictable." No. Read the book. He is completely predictable. He said back then that he would do these things, and he's doing it. And that's one of the major differences between Trump and, quite frankly, the politicians on both sides of the aisle, because he's a businessman, not a politician. He comes in, he says he's going to do something, and he actually does it.
And what's interesting? We're comparing and we're drawing similarities between Trump and Reagan. There's a lot. Yes. When you look at it, Reagan was a huge outsider.
Yes.
He was an actor, yes, but he was also kind of in business. He formulated a lot of his opinions and ideology as working with as an employee, essentially, from General Electric, promoting and basically enabling their agenda. That's where he changed his affiliation from a liberal Democrat, or at least a Democrat, to a conservative Republican. So, what's the point? He had an ideology in the 1960s, that he basically put into play 20 years later. Same, you could say, with Trump, correct?
Also, remember, when Reagan came into office, you had what was called the Reagan Democrats. These were diehard Democrats that said, "Okay, you know what? We're going to go with Reagan. We like what he's saying. We're voting for him and we're supporting him." And they supported him throughout his 8 years in office. Trump did the same thing. He went to Harlem. He went to black churches. He went to the folks that the Democrats have been counting on their votes but ignoring them. And he went right at the Democratic heart. So you're seeing black males switching to Trump in droves from the Democrats, Hispanics switching to Trump from the Democrats. There are so many similarities between Reagan's campaign and Trump's campaign, and Reagan's presidency and Trump's presidency, that none of this should take anybody by surprise.
I agree, but it is certainly a political and social phenomenon. And let me just touch upon, before we move on to our final subject, and the social aspect, to me, is actually could be as or more intriguing than the political. You look at Reagan, okay? 60s and 70s, it was hippies, and it was liberalism, and anyone that's conservative is square, blah blah blah. Reagan changed that whole mindset on campus. in with young people. It was about achievement. It was about being a yuppie. On campus, it was cool to be conservative. In music, you look at Huey Lewis, it's hip to be square, all that kind of stuff. That wasn't by accident. Did it last forever? No. But I think you see the same thing transpiring right now, 40 years later, don't you?
You really do. And it's something that most politicians cannot pull off. We have had three politicians that I would characterize as having a cult of personality in my lifetime, and that's Reagan, Obama, and Trump.
Yeah.
So,
Yes, three. You are correct with three. Two are actually good.
well,
Just kidding.
yes, I'm not saying,
No, I know
having
that.
the
I'm just
cult of
kidding with you.
personality is good, yes. But Obama had the same thing, which is why we're actually seeing this uptick in socialism in the Democrats, because that's what he was pushing, and he had the personality that could do it. I mean, let's face all three of these men, Reagan, Obama, and Trump, they could sell ice cubes to Eskimos, to use the old phrase.
No doubt.
They
No doubt
knew-
about it.
they
You look at
knew
you go ahead, sir.
Yeah, they knew how to market their opinion. They knew how to get it across. And the one thing that Reagan had that neither Obama or Trump has is he was able to work across the aisle. Reagan and Tip O'Neill worked hand
We're
in
drinking
hand.
buddies.
Yes, they didn't agree on everything. They didn't agree on most things, but they did agree that they had to put America first, and they put aside their differences to make sure that happened. We haven't seen that probably since the Reagan administration.
I would agree 100%. And then closing on kind of a lighter note, and you look at the hangover or lack thereof legacy of Biden and his DEI initiatives. You had what head of transportation, the guy looked like a egghead from Batman, the guy stealing luggage. You had the health secretary, the transsexual overweight nutcase. But another legacy of his, a DEI legacy, is Justice Jackson. I knew that other justices were not exactly enamored with her brain power, but then I heard her oral arguments about the trans and women's sports, and wow, it's like a word salad close to Kamala. I mean, that's when you've reached rock bottom, but it's not that far removed. She was saying, yes, it's discrimination. The first level of discrimination is a separation of boys and girls, and this just what are you talking about? So anyway, on is a much lighter note, but yeah, she is a complete DEI hire. She knows very little about the law, and there you go. Another Biden legacy.
Yeah, that's something. I don't know that that's really a lighter note, because there have been a couple of comments, not just her, but Ketanji Brown also, that, and quite frankly, Sotomayor, they've made
Exactly. Yes,
they
yes,
have
yes.
made comments that make me wonder where they got their law degrees and how did they pass.
100%.
And
100%.
I find that frightening. Now, I don't always agree with the conservative justices either. And I actually do like Justice Roberts' approach, where he tries to make every decision as narrow as possible, saying, in this situation, this is what we are deciding, but that doesn't mean it's going to apply to every situation. Where the more conservative justices and the more liberal justices, they want sweeping change. And quite frankly, that's not what the Supreme Court is supposed to be doing. Justice Roberts has it right. But it frightens me that, and it's not just the Supreme Court, we have Congress people that make comments that make it very clear they don't understand how government works. They don't know what their job is. And personally, I blame this on the fact that the school systems stopped teaching civics about 30 years ago.
Oh, wait, I need to interject something on that. It was funny. We were talking about something previously. Oh, about impeachment. You say, oh, politicians know that, or it doesn't make a difference exactly what you said.
Yep.
But your point was well founded, by the way. But the public doesn't. I was about to say, well, when you're 25th in education, that shouldn't be,
Yes.
as Gomer Pyle said, surprise, surprise. That should not come as a shock. No, no.
That's exactly right. But it is a frightening thought. Now, fortunately, the Trump administration has built a really deep bench of very smart people. So there is at least a pathway out of this. But the next generation of folks that is going to be leading this country, if they don't even understand what their job is, and you're seeing it right now, the major catastrophe going on with Zoran Mandami in New
Oh,
York
God.
City, because it's become very obvious over just the past 2 weeks that he's been in office, he doesn't know what the mayor's job is.
He has no clue, and I think that's going to bite the proverbial ass of the Democrats, because it's actually a microcosm of Democratic ideology in practice. It's all textbook bullshit from some bullshit university, but if you actually put it into play, it falls flat on its face, as you alluded to before.
All right.
Correct?
Let's just take a quick look at the last 2 weeks in New York City. Mandami campaigned on free buses. On day one of his mayorship, the price of buses went up. You now have anti-Semites going into Jewish neighborhoods chanting, "We support Hamas," to the point that even AOC and Kathy Hochul had to go, no, this has gone too far. We need to do something about this. You had him try to overturn a purchase of rent-controlled apartments, a real estate sale, and the court went, no, you don't have the ability to do that. So he's already 2 weeks, he's been shot down by the courts.
Should that surprise you? He never had I'm sorry, he did have a job as a failed rap artist. That's like when you're unemployed, you say, I'm writing a novel.
Right, yes.
Or you're a community organizer, one and the same. Well, Dr. Lopkin, another great episode of Carnivore Radio. We'll be back next week. Our listeners can contribute to the process, can't they?
Yes, let us know what your opinion is. What issues are bothering you? What do you want to hear us talk about? You can go to xvadio.com/connect. You can also message us at the Carnivore Radio Facebook page. And of course, you can catch every episode of Carnivore Radio at xvadio.com, the Carnivore Radio website, the Apple Podcast app, YouTube, Rumble, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Audible, Amazon Music, and other platforms that respect freedom of speech.
Thank you, Dr. Lopkin. See you next week.
We'll see you then.